What's up, man? I'm with MTV News. I was wondering if you had any MP3s on your computer.
Yeah.
So how many MP3s do you have on your computer?
About 600.
6 or 7,000.
Come again?
6 or 7,000.
Probably like 300.
For real? Where'd you get them from?
Truthfully, most of them from Napster.
The first time I heard about digital music was through Napster. And I didn't really understand what it was, but I knew I could get any song I wanted.
How many of you download music from the internet? Okay.
When I realized that there is an opportunity to just download everything we want and not really pay for it, I started to use it.
19-year-old Sean Fanning developed the Napster computer program. Today at BYU, he was treated like a rock star.
It's strange, it's awkward. I'm not used to this.
He's an awesome guy, and he's so young, too.
So you don't think this is stealing?
Not at all, because you're just getting a few songs that you find interesting and seeing what's up.
There was this era of discovery that felt like the virtual version of a record store.
I remember saying to myself shortly after downloading my first MP3, I'm never going to buy music again.
Don't steal the music! 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 Don't steal the music!
If people leech off the system for free, the creators of copyright will not get compensated, and the movies and music will not get made. It's as simple as that.
When it became possible for people to get music for free, there was a lot of outcry and a lot of concern about, well, why do people think it's free? Why is that right?
If you make something and somebody takes it without compensating you, you're hurt by that.
Everyone would like to have everything for free. That's not how we work. And it's not fair, it's not right.
When you got a technology that gives away what you do free, how do you compete with free? I mean,
when Napster hit, it wasn't just an issue for the music industry.
Young teenagers, mind you, are coming up with ways we can get DVD movies on our computers for free.
Anything that was reducible to a 1 or a 0 was potentially available freely to consumers.
All of this was, from a music industry executive perspective, terrifying.
On the flip side, for the independent artist, Napster was probably a good thing. It made it so much easier to get exposure.
Probably 96, 97. Started making my first songs on the computer and putting them on the internet. Then the Napster came out. Yeah, it was massive, you know? I'd look at my songs on Napster and like see them on there like a lot, you know? If a lot of search results came up, it was like a lot of people had it. So you could kind of tell like that, like, wow, so this stuff's really spreading, you know?
Making MCs freeze and drop to their knees like getting caught smuggling keys through Caribbean seas at ease.
I think Napster did a lot for independent artists at that time. It was the beginning of an independent path to find your following such that you can sustain yourself, have a career without having a major label contract.
Benefit was and is an awesome MC, but way ahead of his time. The major labels weren't paying attention to what was happening in the MP3 world. To their loss, because the MP3 world was like a minor leagues. And if somebody floats or rise to the top, then they could, zoom off to that other level.
The old paradigm from the last century only was good for that last century. The new century, I look at Napster as being new radio. And people are finding ways that now you're gonna have 1 million artists and 1 million labels now all in the record game.
I got the deaf people hearing this, blind people seeing this, paralyzed from the neck down, still feeling it.
But then the flip side, if you're making a living off of music as a musician, and suddenly your revenue streams like cut out from under you, like, yeah, I totally understand.
Paralyzed from the neck down, neck down, neck down.
I remember Lars from Metallica was like, you know, he was really mad about it.
Napster hijacked our music without asking. They never sought our permission. Our catalog of music simply became available for free downloads on the Napster system. The argument I hear a lot, that music should be free, must then mean that musicians should work for free. Nobody else works for free, why should musicians?
Drummer Lars Ulrich and his bandmates say Napster is illegal and filed suit against its creator for copyright infringement.
Most artists weren't really too thrilled with being on the other side of the kind of the hip, hot, new, young thing. But Lars was, frankly, unafraid to get out there.
If they want to steal Metallica's music instead of hiding behind their computers in their bedrooms and dorm rooms, then just go down to Tower Records and grab them off the shelves instead.
When I saw Lars Ulrich going on that campaign, I just remember thinking that was the lamest thing I'd ever seen. Like, Metallica, you're all millionaires. So what are you complaining about?
What's your beef with Metallica, then?
Why not let the people listen to music?
As far as I'm concerned, Metallica is off my best album.
There was definitely a lot of hate and a lot of backlash. My friend definitely said, yeah, F Metallica, I'm done. I'm only listening to Nirvana now.
I've removed all the Metallica files from my hard drive. I don't want anything to do with Metallica anymore.
This mattered to a lot of people. Napster was like this symbol of freedom. And so when you have guys like Lars Ulrich trying to shut Napster down, you're gonna have a hell of a backlash.
Lars's argument was the one that I supported, and others in the industry did as well. But this was an incredibly disruptive force in the music industry, no matter what side of the argument you came down on. And the industry had to shut all of this down.
Using a PC to download music is one of the hottest of today's computer trends, and that has the recording companies up in arms and heading to court. At the center of their dispute is a music-sharing internet service known as Napster.
The litigation against Napster was fairly monumental. They were fighting us in court aggressively.
Napster's point of view is like, we don't personally share any files, okay? We just facilitate connections between users, and we're not responsible for policing the contents of our network.
Pure and simple, it was theft of intellectual property. And I just can't get past that fundamental reality. I still get agitated, even at this point, years later.
CNN covered the court decision live. So there was a lot of pressure. You know, 25 million people were using Napster every single day and really invested in the outcome.
In the end, the judge ruled that it was obvious to everyone at Napster that they knew what was going on. Napster appealed that and lost again.
In a 68-page opinion, the appeals court said Napster knew its users were violating copyright infringement laws.
The song swapping service this weekend will begin blocking access to millions of musical files on Napster.
We stopped the sharing. We basically took the servers offline. Over a period of time, the obligations to the creditors just overwhelmed the company, and there didn't seem to be any way to get revenue in. And so the board determined at that point the best thing to do would be to go into bankruptcy.
The days of free music with Napster, folks, are over.
It felt like this really dark, horrible day in San Francisco. I was depressed. Lots of people were depressed. Technology had lost.
But then, of course, the moles started popping all over the place.
There are already dozens of alternatives to Napster, with names such as My Napster, Napagator, and CuteMX.
We had other file sharing services crop up that were in many ways more insidious. There was no centralized server that the files passed through, and that was much more difficult to address.
Even if they crack down on one program like Kazaa or something, I think there's going to be another program coming out that in the next week or two that's going to be doing the same thing.
The huge problem at the time is that it was very hard to tell people not to use peer-to-peer methods. And they'll say, well, what should we use? And the answer was go to a record store and buy a CD. That's not what they wanted to hear.
The record companies have to wake up, and I think they will, to the fact that they're no longer in the business of hiring trucks and having big warehouses and shipping CDs around. People want their music via the internet.
The answer to the piracy was to give people what they otherwise wanted in a legitimate way at a fair and reasonable price.
We needed to have a legitimate online music store.
The labels tried in their own lame ways to debut digital music stores of their own, which were total failures.
I remember trying to use these things and on these special players, and it was really pretty antediluvian, and nobody really signed up for these things. For the longest time, there was such a divide between Silicon Valley and the music industry. You know, it was just a big war.
It was not in the software industry's interest to help the music industry. They sold a lot of computers because people wanted to get their music and other content for free.
The music companies, they said, you know, you guys are all promoting piracy, and the tech guys are like, oh, you guys are all a bunch of Luddites, you don't understand, you have to change your business model. And the one guy who was able to bridge that divide was Steve Jobs.
I've been back about 8 to 10 weeks, and we've been working really hard. And what we're trying to do is not something really highfalutin. We're trying to get back to the basics.
Steve Jobs had been fired at Apple and then been brought back. And at the time, Apple, was in some ways a bit player in the computer space. The Mac products represented about 3% market share.
This company's absolutely going to turn around. As a matter of fact, I think the question now is not, can we turn around Apple? I think that's the booby prize. I think it's, can we make Apple really great again?
In 2001, he introduced the iPod.
There it is, right there.
So Steve saw a great opportunity in the music space for Apple.
Music's been around for a long time. You know, it's a real tangible market. And I think if we can bring some value to that market, then we'll succeed.
In late 2002, Steve Jobs called and said that he was going to create an online music store. And I saw that as the perfect opportunity to at least say, all right, we've got something out there.
We came up to Cupertino and went into a conference room. And Steve walks in. I don't think we even knew that that was going to happen. But he walks in and says, I want to show you the iTunes store. And then he sits there for 2 hours, himself with the mouse, showing how the store would work.
He was like a little kid in a candy store, absolutely, fascinated with this thing that I remember thinking, it's so simple. And in fact, it was, but that's what made it brilliant.
It worked better than anything we'd ever seen before. And it became obvious this was a good thing to go with.
The one thing, of course, about the iTunes Music Store, he wanted every song to be a buck.
Steve Jobs wanted to sell singles off of every album that was on iTunes. He did not want a single album on the store that you could not break down in singles.
That had, really serious ramifications, for the music industry. There would be unbundling the album.
A CD is a bundle. It's a bundle of songs. If you want one song, you must buy the entire package. Bundles inflate the total revenue because people are kind of forced to pay up a bit.
So let's take a canonical example, which would be Vanilla Ice. I would be surprised if most people can name more than one Vanilla Ice song. But Vanilla Ice sold something like 10 million albums on the basis of just one hit song. So $160 million in revenue. Once you liberated the single from the album, that excess income from the compact disc would go away forever. You would only earn a small fraction of what you previously earned. They knew this was going to hurt them.
It's to say as a music fan, but it seems like music is almost disposable now. You would put out an album, every 6 years, tour for those 6 years off of that one album. But now having to put out a single, and then 3 singles, and then all of a sudden it's just a string of singles with no cohesion like an album. And really the songs don't have as much meaning to you as they did back then.
The pitch that Jobs made to the majors was, "We will save you." It was like a siren song.
There was no choice, really, about anyone who thought about it. There was no choice.
Today, we've got 200,000 tracks, and all of this music with all of these rights, you can buy for 99 cents per song.
It's called iTunes.
iTunes Online Music Store.
The iTunes Music Store. They've really just created, what we've all been waiting for, which is a purely digital music marketplace.
iTunes did spectacularly well. You had that great growth of downloads.
iTunes recently sold its 50 millionth song.
But the deal the industry made with Apple, to me, was a huge mistake.
The unbundling of albums meant that the revenue that came in was significantly diminished.
We were hopeful that the physical product would hold on longer than it did. As it turned out, it didn't.
CD sales have dropped almost 1/4 in just 3 years. That's an awful lot of lost business.
Buyers got very fed up with spending $18 when there's only 1 or 2 songs they like.
This change with iTunes made people so upset that people actually started taking their products off the platform. Estelle had an album that had come out, and the label found out that about 90% of the purchases were just of one song, American Boy. They pulled the entire album off of the platform for 3 weeks before caving in and putting it back on.
Really, they were desperate. And they decided what they would do was go after the end users of the peer-to-peer sites. The average file sharer, John and Jane Download. This was extremely controversial within the record industry. Hillary Rosen, the head of the RIAA, actually resigned in protest.
I didn't want us to go against individuals. Even though they were the source of a huge amount of illegal activity, I felt like ultimately they were still music fans. But essentially, I was kind of overruled. My last day at the RIAA was the day before the litigation against individuals started.
Yesterday, the music industry took another step, for the first time going after people downloading and swapping music online.
We want people to stop engaging in the theft of music so that people can go on making it.
I don't remember if I got it via letter or email, but I basically got what looked like a scam from the RIAA saying, you owe us for having downloaded music. I honestly ignored it because I didn't care. And they sent another letter saying I could be sued for up to $30,000 per song, of which there were thousands. I didn't have that much money. I don't think anyone did.
I wasn't ever really worried about getting fined for downloading MP3s, mainly because I was using my mom's computer, and I was kind of an so I was like, oh, my mom's gonna get fined, not me. Like, you can't take a 13-year-old's income when he doesn't have any income.
They filed something like 17,000 lawsuits. But rather than going after the big infringers, they ended up suing children and grandmothers and people who were dead and moms.
Vonnie Bassett was shocked to be slapped with a lawsuit for the hundreds of songs her teens downloaded off the internet for free.
My kids go to Catholic school. We brought them up right. No one in our family's been arrested. I mean, we don't steal. We don't steal.
It's just ridiculous. It was absurd. It was absurd.
I'm not downloading anything ever again. I mean, not even screensavers.
Almost everybody was forced to settle, often for a relatively small amount of money, like $3,000 or $4,000. But in the end, this just made people hate them. It didn't create a deterrent effect, it just made them loathed.
You know, I've been an avid record collector for over 40 years.
Right.
I've got nearly 10,000 records. You turned a music fan into an enemy.
In fact, more people probably went to piracy as a result of this than anything else.
I ended up having to pay, like, I think close to $1,000 to the RIAA. But in the end, I ended up recouping my losses by downloading overtime and doubling down.
Between the piracy and the unbundling, the industry recognized that it was on a decline. And over the course of, 15 years, shrank significantly. Industry revenue, I think in '99 was worldwide $34 billion. And it fell to something like $16 billion.
The industry was just destroyed, annihilated.
A simple dynamic in business, when an industry is under threat, you consolidate, which is a fancier word for cutting costs. You put two big music enterprises together, you can eliminate a whole bunch of jobs.
I'm currently standing in front of what used to be the Virgin Megastore, Union Square. Closed in June of 2009. It is now a Duane Reade and a Citibank.
This building formerly used to be Tower Records. It was the first Tower Records in New York. That window right there where the light is, that floor I worked on, it was the oldie section.
CD sales were dipping since I think like 2000, 2001. That's where the decline really kicked in.
I can't even remember the last time I physically went and bought a CD.
When 2006 happened, it was all over for me. That was the end of it.
There wasn't much I could do.
Tower Records may be toppling. The music chain is preparing to file for bankruptcy next week.
When Tower was bought out, a lot of us, the employees that worked there, fell into like a depression. We're like, wow, this is it. The Tower is going to be gone for good.
How do I feel about it? Crappy.